Yep.
So let's talk about cameras now. Obviously, you are a brand ambassador for Leica. What brought you to loving Leica?
So it's a long story. Basically, if you follow the website, if anybody knows the website ShotKit, one of my shot kit was one of the more popular ones, and it's because of the amount of gear that I had. But it was funny because I had a lot of gear, but it wasn't just one brand.
Okay.
I had Nikon gear, I had Canon gear, I had a Leica camera. And the reason was because when I first got into it, with an art background, I had a lot of goals of just coming into the industry and really doing things differently. I wanted to do things and use my art background to be more artistic and creative and use it to really get into storytelling. I got my inspiration from other places, from wedding photography. I never got hooked on following certain wedding photographers. I looked to movies and record albums and
That's awesome.
fashion photography. So what happened was I started with Nikon, and Nikon had a lot of benefits over Canon. And then I started to see how beautiful the colors were with Canon, but they lacked in what Nikon had, which was low light, high ISO. And the whole Nikon camp would talk about how they could shoot in the dark, and Canon talked about the colors they had. So to be honest with me, I didn't really care. To me, it was I wanted to be able to just use a tool that would make it easy for me to get to the end result, not have to worry about it. So I would shoot Canon during the day when the lighting was good, and I would shoot Nikon at night when the lighting was bad.
Wow.
And it was a little bit more, it was a little bit more pricey because I had to buy different gear and different lenses. But at the same time, it made my job easier because they were the tools that worked. About 3 years ago, I was asked to test a camera from a company, and it was a Leica M9. It's a rangefinder. It's very different than any DSLR or mirrorless. I tried it. It took me an hour to figure out how to use, and I honestly didn't think I liked it at all. I brought it on vacation. At the end of vacation, I fell in love with it. The price tag was a little bit more than I expected.
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand why. Well, I started to realize why, and the quality of their cameras and their lenses. Everything's still handmade in a factory.
Wow.
I mean, from the dials that are put on and the logos that are put on, they're they're done by hand.
That's awesome.
It really is a company that's still all on its own and separates itself from everybody else. As I shot it more and more, I eventually, started to shoot it more than my Canon and Nikon. So last year, I really got into shooting their mirrorless camera, which is the Leica SL. And it's funny because this has been out for almost 3 years now.
Okay.
And I'd shot it before it was released. They let me test it beforehand, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I fell in love with it, but at the time I didn't have the money to invest in it. Last year I did. So I made the investment, and it does offer me everything that I need. The lenses I love, I can switch the lenses back between the M10 and the rangefinder and the SL. There's an adapter. And basically, this is the first camera system and manufacturer that does everything I need it to do.
That's awesome.
And most importantly, what I tell all the photographers is it's not about just sticking to one brand. It's finding what works for you.
Yes.
This might not work for somebody else. And a lot of people ask me why I spend the money that I do on this equipment. And it's because this equipment gets me to the end result quicker than any other camera.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's heavy. But if you look at Canon and Nikon, who just finally released their mirrorless, they only have one card slot.
Yeah, no.
The SL has two.
Yeah.
And the fact that this has been out for almost 3 years now is pretty amazing. The LCD is brighter and has a better resolution than any out there today.
Okay.
I believe so. Don't mark me on that. And the
Do you
lenses.
find yourself shooting more prime or zoom?
So the funny thing is, before the SL, Leica didn't even offer any zoom lenses. They were all prime.
Really? I had no idea.
They do have a couple zoom lenses now, but because I'm so used to shooting primes with Nikon and Canon, I only shoot prime still. The amount of gear that I use today is very limited.
Okay, yeah.
I shoot basically a 24 prime, a 50 prime. I actually have two of them.
Okay.
They render very differently. They give me a completely different look. and I have a 75.
Wow,
And that
that's
is
definitely,
it.
75 is not something that Canon and Nikon does.
No.
They have their 85, 105, or 135.
Yes.
So let's start to bring up some images so we can talk about those and how you shot them and composition-wise.
Sounds good.
We'll see them come up. This is gorgeous. Love it.
So this was recent, and this was shot with the SL and the 50. And one thing that this camera does that I really, really love is it makes it easy for me to lock in my settings and my focus and take a few shots to make a panorama. So this is
Wow.
actually a panorama shot. The first image is basically just the couple and not much wiggle room on either side. And then I love being able to show a little bit of the scene,
Yes.
a little bit of the environment. And I think this was around 12 or 14 images stitched together.
Wow.
And this camera makes it absolutely, flawless with
That's
these
awesome.
type of, these types of panos.
That's awesome. And then this. So I'm a sucker for silhouettes. I love silhouettes so much. So tell us about this one.
This one was I'm the same way as you are. I love silhouettes.
This so much.
And it's funny because I do catch a lot of flack for these type of shots where the couple's small and other photographers, especially portrait photographers who aren't in the wedding industry, say like, why would you take this shot? You can't see who the couple is, you can't see their faces. It's all about telling a story. When I put their album together, the shot that might be on the very next page or right next to this is going to be a close-up of them. This tells the story. So this was the very end after I did a portrait session with them. And they were done. They had had enough. And I knew I wanted one more shot. So I basically set up where I knew I could be. And I told them to just run across the field and run straight into the venue and eat their dinner.
That's perfect.
And it worked out good because they didn't have to stop and pose. They didn't have to do anything. And I got that shot, and it's one of their favorites.
I love that. And this is so beautiful.
This is from the past weekend.
Okay.
This was on Friday. And the couple had said, hey, we're going to get in a canoe. And however you want to shoot it. And I said, you know what, let me hop in a canoe and follow you guys. The problem was they were very thin canoes, and I haven't canoed since I was a Boy Scout, probably 20 years ago. And I literally was looking at what gear to put in there with me.
Yeah.
Because I knew how easy it would be to capsize or
Yes.
flip over. And I just said, you know what, I'm just going to put it on there. So I brought all my Leica gear. It sat there in front of me.
That's awesome.
And I did my best. I even held over the edge of the canoe with live view and just held it over the water while I held his hand out to balance myself and shot to get, a lower profile shot. And it was definitely a fun experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now this just blows my mind. Tell me about this. I love this so much.
This is a shot that I've actually talked about on my IG, my Instagram stories that I've been that I've been telling everybody that I'm going to share how I did this. And I do have it with me, if I could run over and get it. But I have a mirror, and I found a mirror that has a hole in it because it's one that you hang up in your shower.
Okay.
So you can put a hook in it. And the thing with mirrors, and that I never really use them for, is because when you hold a mirror and you take a shot of the couple, a lot of it will cover the couple, and you gotta play it right. With the hole in the mirror, I was able to put that couple right in that hole.
Wow.
And
I would have never thought of that.
I was able to reflect the sky behind them.
Awesome.
And get them crystal clear still, and just have the sky kind of encapsulate them right around that hole in the mirror.
That's very creative. I would have never thought of that.
It took a ton of practice with my cats, my son, my dog. It was like my wife. I would during a wedding, I would say, "Hey, real quick, just stand around." I don't even know if I could do this yet, but just let's try it.
That's so funny.
And it took a few weeks, but that was one of the ones that came out really good. That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. We have learned so much to talk about. And you will see us next week on Get in Focus with Jackie Stinsman. Have a great day, guys.